It was a personal rivalry. A sold-out crowd anticipating conflict. 2 victories for Eala, a streaking champion desperate for retribution. However, the entire tennis world froze when the Croatian approached the net after the last point. The camera zoomed in, and she murmured something that no microphone could pick up. Something much more magnificent, not rage or annoyance. Why is it being referred to as the most unexpected moment of the grass season? And what did Donna Vekic say to the woman who had just finished her dream run? June 17, 2026, Berlin, Germany center court at Steffi Graf Stadium. The Steffi Graf Stadium's immaculate grass was covered in lengthy shadows from the early sun. There were 25,000 seats available. The Philippine flags were prepared, and Laban's chants were about to reverberate across one of tennis' most illustrious venues. However, the previous evening had been chaotic. At 3 a.m, a fire alarm at the Waldorf Astoria pushed players out of their beds. Coco Gauff, Eva Liss, and Alex Eala stood outside in the cold, confused and lacking sleep, while firefighters vacated the building. The interruption could not have come at a worse moment for Eala, who was supposed to play Donna Vekic in the first match of the day. However, Eala had already experienced more difficult circumstances. She had to deal with fines, fees, and a WTA that declared her unfit to compete. Despite having signed a waiver, she managed to win Birmingham. She was now up against a champion on a winning streak. Unlike Sabalenka or Raducanu, Donna Vekic was the most attractive player on grass when she arrived in Berlin. One of the most unlikely fairy tales of the grass season has just been written by the 29-year-old Croatian. She had barely made it to the main draw after another player withdrew. Thus, she had entered Queen's Club as a lucky loser. She defeated Emma Raducanu of Britain in the competition final, turning that second opportunity into a triumph. She had risen from number 76 to number 33 in the rankings thanks to the victory. The head-to-head revealed another narrative. Vekic was a different player now, and Eala had a 2-0 advantage over him, a tough 3-set struggle at the ASB Classic in Auckland, and a commanding exhibition triumph at the Kuyon Classic. However, those games took place on hard courts. The media anticipated a narrative, the audience anticipated a war, and the tennis community anticipated pyrotechnics. They received something very different. Steffi Graf Stadion, Center Court, Berlin, Germany, June 17, 2026. A statement was made on the first serve. Eala painted the line with a lefty delivery that roared down the tee. The recently crowned Queen's Club champion, Donna Vekic, could only observe. At 112 miles per hour, the radar gun illuminated. It was an obvious message. There was no sign of the girl who had tripped at Queen's Club. However, Vekic had not come to Berlin to be scared. She had just written one of the grass season's most unlikely fairy tales, a fortunate loser who had transformed a second chance into a WTA 500 championship. In the rankings, she had risen from 76 to 33. She had a score to settle. She was confident, and she was streaking. Vekic was eager to change the narrative that the head-to-head revealed. In a tough 3-set match at the ASB Classic in Auckland, Eala prevailed 2-0 in a commanding exhibition triumph at the Kuyon Classic. However, Vekic was a different player today, and earlier games took place on hard courts, whereas this one was on grass. The war started from the baseline. A chess match took place in the opening set. Vekic's power was neutralized by Eala's lefty angles. Emma Raducanu had been overpowered by the Croatians' fierce ground strokes in the Queen's Club final, but they were constantly diverted, pushed wide, forced into mistakes, and rendered harmless. Vekic attempted to adapt by changing her speed and attacking the net, but to no avail. Eala broke early, held, and then broke once again. In 34 minutes, the opening set was finished. In the stands, the Philippine flags fluttered wildly. The historic Steffi Graf Stadion reverberated with Laban's chants, but Vekic was far from done. The second set told a different tale. The 15-year tour veteran from Croatia dug deep. After being neutralized in the opening set, her serve regained its rhythm. Anticipating the lefty angles that had caused her so much grief, she started to read Eala's patterns. The tension increased as the rallies got longer. Vekic scored her first breakpoint of the game at 4-4. The stadium held its breath. Ellis used her sixth ace of the game to rescue it. The damage was already done when the mob surged. Vekic was determined not to let go of what she had discovered. A tiebreak would determine the outcome of the set, which went to 6-6. 2 players, 1 set, 7 points. Eala won the first point with a winning forehand. Vekic responded down the line with a backhand. The lead was exchanged 4 times. Eala dared to approach the net at 5 feet 5 inches on grass, and Vekic's passing shots went barely wide. Eala painted the corner with an unstoppable serve at 113 miles per hour. Vekic never made contact with the ball with his racket. The ultimate score? 6-2, 7-6-5. Eala had completed the task. She now had a 3-0 advantage over Vekic. Eala Rybakina, ranked second in the world, was waiting for her in the round of 16. However, she realized the fight was far from ended when she made her way to the internet. The tennis world would be completely stunned by what transpired next. Steffi Graf Stadion, Center Court, Berlin, Germany, June 17, 2026. They had played the last point. Vekic's racket had fallen to her side as Eala's backhand winner kissed the sidelines. 6-2-7-6-5 was displayed on the scoreboard. The game was ended. Eala advanced to the round of 16, where world number 2 Eala Rybakina was waiting, after extending her dominance over the Croatian to 3-0. The historic Steffi Graf Stadion reverberated with Laban screams, while the Philippine flags in the stands flew wildly. With a faint smile on her lips and a look of pleasure from a job well done, Eala raised her arms to the audience. However, the woman approaching the net was the focus of the cameras rather than the champion. Donna Vekic's racket hung loosely in her palm, and her shoulders were hunched. For almost 2 hours, her face had been a mask of competitive fire, but now it was completely different. She had come to Berlin as the champion on a winning streak, the fortunate loser who had overcome the odds at Queen's Club. In the rankings, she had risen from 76 to 33. She had come to demonstrate that her success in the Queen's Club was not an exception. She had also lost. Once more, for the 3rd time in half a year, Vekic yearned to change the narrative of their past. The first encounter had been a brutal 3-set match at the ASB Classic in Auckland for 6-6-4-6-4. The second was a display during the Kuyom Classic in 36-64. The design had now been reproduced on Berlin's grass. She made it to the internet. Eala was anticipating. As usual, the handshake started with a quick palm touch and a whispered good match. However, then an unforeseen event occurred. Donna held on for a while. She took a longer than normal hold of Eala's hand. She bent closer. She spoke, but her words were too quiet for the microphones to record and too personal for everyone to hear. Eala's smile dimmed as her countenance changed. With a gentle nod, she put her free hand on Vekic's shoulder. The cameras caught every instant of the brief embrace. The compassion on Eala's face, the resignation on Vekic's, the unsaid recognition between 2 rivals that the scoreboard was unable to capture everything that was important. Vekic turned and left the court. Eala observed her departure. Then Laban's chant started up again as she raised her arms to the crowd. What was said? In a matter of minutes, the internet exploded. Almost instantly, the hashtag Eala Vekic moment started to trend. Fans from all over the world were arguing the moment at the net rather than the score. What was said by Vekic to Eala? According to some lip readers, she said, "You're too good. I couldn't do anything." Some claimed she had muttered, "Now is your chance to win the entire thing." Although her body language said otherwise, some others thought she had just stated, "Congratulations." In her post-match press conference, Eala was generally reticent when questioned about the exchange. Donna is a fierce rival. Throughout her career, she has experienced a lot. "It's between us," what she stated to me on the internet. She did, however, exhibit a great deal of class. Vekic, for her part, remained silent. Following the game, her team released a brief statement. Donna is concentrating on getting better and getting ready for Wimbledon. She has nothing else to say about the match. The speculation was only heightened by the quiet. One thing was certain, though: the tennis world would be talking about it for days because the occasion had transcended the actual match. The match will take place in Berlin, Germany, at several locations on June 17, 2026. The embrace had been recorded, the handshake had ended, and the whispers had been examined. In a matter of hours, the tennis community was divided into two groups: those who thought Vekic's remarks were sincere and others who thought the incident was a lovely example of sportsmanship. In the Philippines, Croatia, Germany, the UK, and the US, the hashtag Eala Vekic moment was the most popular. Fans from all over the world were arguing the moment, at the net rather than the score. A fan from Manila wrote, "Donna Vekic just lost 6-2-7-6. She was perfectly entitled to feel irritated. Rather, she respectfully went to the internet. Class is that. That's good sportsmanship." Another commented, "The way she looked at Alex was more akin to admiration than anger or bitterness." She was aware that a superior player had defeated her that day. Proud with their Olympic silver medalist, Croatian supporters shared their own viewpoint. One fan from Zagreb wrote, "Donna has been through so much. She questioned herself, retaliated,